whenever you're ready.
Well, welcome everybody here, both in the seminary here in Houston, to join us for this session on a bold model of diocesan pastoral care ministry and equipping lay people for the service of pastoral care. We're so appreciative of the opportunity to gather, and we are so grateful that almost 60 lines out in the country are joining us this morning for this session, in which we are able to kind of explore a bit just what it takes to prepare people for the pastoral care ministry. My name is David Lichter. I'm Executive Director of the National Association of Catholic Chaplains. It's a delight to be here and very much appreciate the welcome that I've received here in the diocese. I'd like that we begin with a prayer. This one's entitled Sending Forth Compassion from Joyce Rupp. Knowing very much our ministry is that of sharing in the compassion of Jesus. And let us make this prayer for each of us our own. So let us pray. I stand at the door of a light-filled dawn, where the gift of hope rises in my soul. I open my heart and send forth this gift to each and every person longing for joy, to all whose spirits grow dim with summer. I stand at the window of midday, where the flurry of day's activity beats upon the pane with urgency. Opening my heart to where peace resides, I send forth this abiding harmony to all who are caught in the claws of poverty, whose endless work seems never done. I stand at the gate of the lengthening dusk, the transitional place between light and dark. I send forth confidence from my heart to those who are unsure in their transitions, to each person who questions the future. And as I stand at the entrance of the dark night, I open my heart to send forth compassion to those whose body or mind knows pain, to all whom the nighttime brings burden, not rest. Throughout the day and into the night, I stand with the Holy One by my side, calling out, peace to one, peace to all, hope resounding, love indwelling, compassion abounding. Gracious and loving God, we thank you for these moments together. We thank you for the ministry of healing. We thank you for ministering in the name of your Son, Jesus. May your Spirit be with us in these moments and continue to strengthen us in our ministries. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen. Before we go further, I'd like to introduce Father Italo, who is the Secretary Director for here at the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston, who oversees the clergy formation and chaplaincy services. Italo.
Thank you very much, Dr. Victor. Thank you all of you for participating in this program, which is a beautiful event for myself. I want to extend a really warm welcome to all of you this morning, those here and those looking at us through the camera. I'm very honored to host this event and honored for your presence, Dr. David Lichter, as the Executive Director of the NACC, and Sister Peter, a fellow religious member of the religious community as I am. She is here with the Young Institute of Gerontology. We're grateful to the leadership of the Catholic Chaplain Corps colleagues. The Archdiocese has always had a strong commitment to pastoral care ministry. Our bishops 25, 30 years ago established the Catholic Chaplain Corps, which continues to serve the patients at the Texas Medical Center. This program, in a very short time, has clearly advanced the Archdiocese's mission. As a result of the faithful ministry and efforts of many people, The spiritual needs of so many more of our Catholic sisters and brothers are now being more effectively met and in a greater number. I have to say that as I started my service for the Archdiocese 3 years ago as a director of the Secretary of Clergy Formation and Chaplaincy Services, which include the Catholic Chaplain Corps, I was struck when I found in one of the drawers at my office a plan dating back 15 years ago that foresaw the possibility of expansion of the chaplain services beyond the Texas Medical Center into a way that is very much similar to what you people are doing at this time. And with that in mind, we look forward to renew the chaplain corps itself. We had Deacon Al Bassett and Denise Foos coming on board. To them, I am very personally grateful for the great job that they have been doing in establishing and moving forward this program. I have to say that Cardinal DiNardo, our bishop, is very happy that this is going on. And so it is on his behalf also that I welcome you and I invite you to continue to grow with great trust and the good Lord that always is happy when some people visit those who are infirm. So we look forward to telling our story, and Deacon Al and Denise will do that much better than I can ever dream of. We also look forward to learning from you through your suggestions and inputs. Again, on behalf of Cardinal DiNardo, welcome this morning, and I look forward to sitting with you and listening to you and learn with you. Many thanks.
Thank you, Father. Thank you very much. So thank you. Just a couple of introductory comments. We have about 2 hours together today, and there are packed 2 hours that we have. I'm going to take a brief moment just to give a little background on why we're doing what we're doing. And then we're so grateful that Sister Peter Lillian DeMaria was able to join us to kind of talk about it from the vantage point of elder care, pastoral care. And she's been very involved here also with the Archdiocese and helping to do training. And then when she's completed, Deacon Al Bassett will talk about the program. And then there's going to be more of a give and take. We really are looking for you who are participating from a distance to ask questions and to make observations. And we'll make that more of a kind of dialogue time together, as well as with you who are here in person to talk about that. So after my introduction and after Sister Peter Lillian's presentation, we won't have Q&A, but we will after Deacon Al's presentation and such, so that we can move forward together. And we really look for that type of exchange, as Father Ito had mentioned. We really look also to hear from those who are at a distance, because several representatives of dioceses are participating from a distance here this morning as well. So we're very grateful for that. I better get my watch out so I make sure we have time, Sister Peter. So, pastoral care. You're well aware. I think you all have handouts here, and I know materials were sent to all of you at wherever you were participating, and hopefully those materials you're able to follow from a distance as we go through this together. This is a very specific understanding of ministry, isn't it? Pastoral care. The nature and care and activity of the divine, that God is creative and redemptive. Both looks at the dignity of the human person through creation and the destiny of the human person through redemption itself, and how in many ways we embody that. And as I think of pastoral care, in many ways I think about it as truly the motivation within us to be sharing in that bon pastoral. We see ourselves part of the Judeo-Christian tradition as sharing in that work of Jesus. But also it is a very unique perspective that we bring to the work as we understand it in terms of the creation and redemption activity, the dignity of the human person through creation, the destiny of the human person through redemption. We truly believe we had an end for ourselves. And as we care for people, we're very much aware of that perspective that we bring to the work ourselves. And certainly we also think about it in terms of all that is encompassed in terms of being part of a community. Wherever we are, we're not an isolated person going there to do a good deed. We're really part of an ecclesial community that we bring, and that's part of the total prayer that we have as we come to that person and are present to that person. And we truly represent that healing ministry of Jesus in the context of the work we do. And when we think of pastoral care, we think of pastoral ministry in general that we do within parishes and with a variety of ministries that are there. When we think of pastoral care, we think of very specific populations to whom we are ministering. A lot of times they're in the boundaries of the parish, but a lot of times they're beyond the boundaries of the parish. The aged, the ill, the dying, the victims of loss and destruction, the lost, the lonely, the least, the imprisoned, refugees. And so oftentimes they're often not in the purview of the parish. And we're really extending ourselves into those various settings where it's taking place. This quote from Pope Francis, I think, is a powerful one. So they do not feel excluded from the community. And they can experience, because of the proximity of one who meets them, because of the proximity of the one who meets them, the presence of Christ, which passes now in the midst of the sick in body and spirit. Think about that sense of removing isolation wherever it is, to who we are and how we are present to those who are most engaged and needing very much the presence of Christ. So let me step back and talk a little bit about where we are and why we are where we are. It was a little over 2 years ago when the National Association of Catholic Chaplains looked to say, can we get a group together who represent a variety of Catholic ministries just to look at the area of pastoral care with a very specific focus in mind? We'd say, could we identify where are the most critical needs? Could we look and say, what do people need to do that type of work? What are the diverse ministries that are involved in completing that type of work? What are, in a sense, are the competencies one needs to do that? And nationally, can we look at models that are out there and to kind of hold up those models and say, here's some national support and direction? Think, for instance, after Vatican II, the work that was done around religious education and formation, right? You think of all the catechetical directories that were put out, you think of all the training went to people who were doing that type of work, the ongoing standardization of that activity and national support around it. In some ways now, 40, 50 years later, we are in a sense of attempting that within pastoral care. There hasn't been no national guidelines outside of our board certification of those who are doing specifically hospital care ministry. A lot of other areas, it just hasn't been in a sense of national guidance. So in that process, we invited people from a variety of ecclesial leadership areas. We had the prison chaplains, the VA chaplains, we had Sister Peter Lillian from the elder care arena, we had Harry Dudley from the Bishops' Committee on Certification, we had Elizabeth Roman from the National Catholic Council on Hispanic Ministry, we had Catholic Health Association, we had the Association for Lay Ecclesial Ministry, as well as the graduate schools. These were members that helped to come together and kind of look at this, as well as the people from a variety of types of ministries, specifically diocesan models, etc. We convened in Milwaukee in October of 2016, now 2 years ago, and spent 3 days just looking at, okay, what are the settings, what is needed, what are potentially, can we develop a set of competencies together that we look and say this would provide some guidance for us nationally. And so we gathered in that fall of 2016, and over the next 7-8 months until May of 2017, we worked in small groups to refine further these particular competencies and begin to think about, in a sense, what's the type of programming that could be needed for it. In your handout, you'll actually see a couple grids that will kind of show you kind of a one page of what these competency models look like. You'll have them in your hard copy, and you, from a distance, will have them. I don't have them on this particular PowerPoint, but we really looked at the emphasis around elder care, home care, faith community nursing, migrants, criminal justice, and we isolated 4 areas for competencies. One is around elder care, one is around kind of diocesan parish settings, one is around criminal justice and corrections, and we also developed a set of competencies for the deacons as they do preparation. And so over the past 1.5 years, we've been, in a sense, dialoguing with groups around this work. around the pastoral care competencies for deacons, the National Association of Deacon Directors. We've been getting together with several and say, is this helpful? Is this helpful? And what's exciting today was Sister Peter Lillian took these competencies of elder care and said, well, how does this help our program? And the dialogue, and Denise Foos and Al Vancic and Ted have all kind of used these competencies to look at the program here in Galveston, Houston, to say how and what ways can these give guidance. 3 days ago was a call with several directors of diocesan pastoral care ministry, people who put in charge of their diocese, to say again, how can these be helpful to you? So our desire today is to kind of share a bit the Galveston Houston story, and where they are in terms of their development. But this has been an exciting venture for us, and we know as we look at how to best help and support the work, we did take it to the USCCD. We said, a year ago, we said, here's the competencies we've worked at so far. And they looked and said, wow, this is really helpful. They found it to be a valuable resource. And so Bishop Kikanis, who is the chair of the subcommittee, said the members of the subcommittee thanked the NACC for this work and encouraged them to move forward in the effort. We affirmed that these competencies are already helpful resources for the diocese. We believe that the training based on them, such as here in Galveston, Houston, will be a rich resource for our brother bishops as they seek to train and support those who offer to help in pastoral care. So there's strong support to this effort. So for us, as we are now still moving forward, we're identifying the good leading practices such as here. That's the importance of today, is to be able to offer those who are visioning this from a distance of different dioceses to say, well, here's one model that's being provided. And over the coming months, we hope through webinars to show other models that are being done around leading practices. Then we also hope, again, to develop resources for those who are in the midst of doing these programs to say, here's things around various areas of the content of these models themselves. And then we're trying to think, well, how can we provide nationally, just as there was for religious education, how nationally do we provide supports for those who've been charged in their diocese to oversee pastoral care? How do we create networks of people saying, well, we're doing this, we're doing this, can we share resources? We already found in the last 18 months it's been a great value for those who've been participating in this process together. And we certainly encourage a community among those who are doing this work voluntarily. In NACC, we have a membership category as a ministry volunteer, and certainly welcome people to join us as we try to create more community among those who are doing this work together. And finally, just to note that next spring, at St. Mary's Lake in Mundelein, we're having, in a sense, a National Pastoral Care Summit, really focusing on, while we have our normally annual conference as NACC, we're really devoting them on this coming year to pastoral care in the church. And so there'll be some focused presentations on elder care, correctional settings, and others. So it's a wonderful time, I think, for us to find ourselves thinking together, praying together, and appreciating the work that's being done. And oftentimes, this is a work in progress. And so I appreciate so much the efforts here in the diocese, the Archdiocese, to share what they're doing with us as you kind of build and work out your program together. And now we appreciate so much of being shared here today. And so a particular thank you, though, to all of our partners in the pastoral care that were in that PowerPoint. But Sister Peter Lillian, we thank you for making time to spend time now with us to kind of share a bit of the area of elder care. But I also want to thank specifically Deacon Al Vancic and Reverend Ted Smith and Denise Foos, who will also be part of the presentation today, and the wonderful work that's being done here in the Diocese of Galveston, Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston. So that being said, I really invite Sister Peter Lillian to come up and to lead us in her presentation. Thank you very much. Look forward to the morning with you.
I'm just going to get my slides set up for you. Just take me 1 second. Of course, becoming one of the elders, I should really put my glasses on, but far be it from me to do that, right? There we are. So, good morning to you here in Galveston, in Houston Diocese, and also out in the community. I'm very happy to have been part of, and continue to be part of the Partners in Pastoral Care. It's been an absolutely wonderful experience for me. We've come together and we've talked about our best practices that we're doing in our own ministries. And when we came together, we realized how important it was to address the different areas of ministry, not only from the aspect of what do we teach one another in our programs, but where's the synergy? And there's been great synergy as we've talked together and come together. I've learned so much from the people that are on the committee and on this wonderful work that has been embarked upon in the last couple of years. As you know, spiritual care for elders is a very specific ministry, just like other ministries, because we run into many different types of probably physical concerns they're having, but maybe some of those mental impairments that they're having. And how do we minister to someone who may be full-blown Alzheimer's disease and is in the moderate or maybe the end stage of Alzheimer's? As pastoral care people, we are extremely important in their lives. Because to me, and I've said this in my classes, and I really have taken this from one of our sisters, you know, it's like that 8th sacrament of presence, of just being there for someone. And whether somebody has Alzheimer's or not, you know, whether you're 95 years old and still able to cognitively be intact, you still need someone to be present. And what we learn in our long-term care settings, I'm a Carmelite sister for the aged and infirm, and we have several facilities throughout the United States. What we learn from our elders is just being there, hearing their stories, and knowing their stories, and tapping into that is most important. So we felt that there was a great need for a program that was totally dedicated to geriatric spiritual care. And that's what we've developed over many years. And I was so grateful when I had an opportunity to be part of this group, because it affirmed the things that we are doing and that we are teaching. And the competencies that were there, it helped us to see that we were aligned with the competencies that are expected of so many wonderful people here and out there that are providing pastoral care to so many people. I think what's so beautiful about the care that you do, the spiritual care, it's something that our mother founders had said often, and that is any of us working with the elderly and working with elders, you may very well be the last person they see before they see the face of God. And you can imagine that they may still be saying your name, and then they see God. I mean, I think it's an awesome, awesome ministry. And when we were looking at not only ministering to our elders, we realized the families also need great care. And not only our families, but because we run so many we are serving in so many long-term care facilities, the staff also need that help. So we kind of coined, again, it's another one of our sisters who coined care partnering versus care giving. What we're actually doing is partnering in care with those we serve. And that's why I love being a part of the Partners Care, Partners Initiative, because we are partners. We are sharing with one another. So we felt that our spiritual care certificate program could be that bridge. Sometimes people are still, should I go into it? Should I not go into CP, pastoral care? Our program kind of jump starts people. And what we have done with our program is we really like to see it as a bridge. People who are maybe volunteering or seriously thinking about going into working in a pastoral care department or working in home-based or in the parishes, it's a bridge to help people to look at maybe the more in-depth study of pastoral care through the CPE course. It's also an option for people who are like, I want to help, I want to, but I'm somewhat nervous about caring or talking to someone who has beginning stages of Alzheimer's. What can I bring them pastorally, spiritually? So part of the program includes a lot of those geriatric issues, which truly includes, certainly the dementia issues, but also the memory impaired, but it also includes those people who are reviewing their life and saying to themselves, I had a really pretty good life, or maybe I should have done something differently. So who helps connect? Who helps connect those people sometimes? Very, very often it's the pastoral care person. So what we designed was a course that is 120 hours. And it's 65 hours of class time. And presently people come to our place up in Germantown, New York, which actually is a beautiful spot. I think it's God's country. We have 86 acres of land, the Hudson River's behind us, Catskill Mountains. So it's a beautiful place and setting to come, and not only to learn, but to reflect. Because as you all know, and I'm not saying anything different, a lot of the reflection that you have to do is within. What do you know about yourself? How can you minister to somebody else if you don't know your own self and what ticks inside of you? And what are some of those things you have to worry about too that you're still trying to address and maybe have to forgive? You forgive over and over again. So it's 65 hours of class time. It's 55 hours of what we call a clinical time, where we go into one of the homes that are served by Carmelite sisters, and you spend about 9 days, 8 to 9 days, just being on the units, hopefully learning something and being able to maybe apply some of the things that we taught during class. It's hard to do that in 1 week, but it at least exposes people to some of the things. And then, of course, we have our little quizzes, and we have some group discussion and some assignments with it. So when we were looking at the competencies for CPE, we had already had our modules set up. And what we had done is we asked our faculty, a very wonderful faculty, to relook at their course material and to see if their modules and information and content was aligned with the competencies, and if there were some things that maybe we needed to add. Now, our course is 120 hours. CP is much longer than that. But we at least wanted to introduce people to the different areas of CPE. And certainly the dynamics of spiritual care was one of the first things that we start with. And I don't need to read you each objective. I put them there for your own, use later on. But understanding that the spirituality, that spirituality of aging, that all of us experience, those transitions that we go through all our lives, and then we're transitioning to what we call an elder. What does that mean? How does the prayer or ritual or sacrament that we have done, especially in our prayers, how that continues to help elders to stay connected? A person with Alzheimer's disease who has been very strong in their faith, you begin the rosary, they'll say the Hail Mary with you. But because we care for everyone and anyone in our community, we need to be aware of the other prayers of other faith traditions as well. Because it may be the one thing that still connects them to that holy, to their God. Certainly, the theology of suffering is extremely important because we have a lot of people in our whole community feels that when somebody comes to any one of our homes, they are immediately put on a palliative care program. And people say, oh, I'm not dying yet. There's a big difference between palliative and hospice care. So when they come to us for palliative care, we put them on palliative care because what we're saying is, well, there's a reason you've come to us, but we need to see you as a whole person. And we say body, mind, and spirit, but what's the emotional? What's the psychiatric? What's the spiritual? What's the familial, family pain? And what is the physical pain that you're experiencing that you've come to us? And every one of those pains may bring some suffering. And we all know pain and suffering are two things. So what we try to do is help our pastoral care people, our spiritual care people, to help them to be able to connect the Old and the New Testament, the theology of suffering that's there throughout. To understand that paschal mystery. I mean, our suffering, Jesus' suffering, certainly didn't end on the cross. His suffering ended on the cross, but we have the redemption. We have the resurrection. Sometimes we get stuck just on the cross. We have to learn that it's a paschal mystery that we all of us go through in some way. And sometimes we have, those crosses that we bear, and our elders have often been through many things and repeat those to us. And we hopefully bring them to that hope of still understanding why they are still here, the purpose of their life, what brings meaning to their lives, and to help them to come to that reality of the death. I mean, we all have. It's not just elder people. All of us are going to get there someday. So we talk about grief and losses, because it's not just grief of people, but it's losses of independence, becoming more dependent on people. Just to go down to chapel, I need someone to take me there. Or I'm being more dependent on someone because of the fact that I'm unable to feed myself. Lots and lots of it. So we talk about all of that suffering. And then we go into the active listening. And all of these modules that I'm talking about were very much aligned with the competencies of Pastor Kurt. We were so thrilled. So I'm so excited, and I was really grateful for David for inviting us to be a part of that. The whole force of the committee to be able to look at these things. So active listening, understanding listening, and understanding active listening. Understanding being present, being silent, becoming more and more comfortable with allowing someone to share in their time, not in my time, not going with an agenda. Understanding the difference between a pastoral visit and a social visit. Sometimes the social visit starts and then it leads us into that pastoral visit. We never bring anybody to a pastoral because it's part of our agenda. We listen to their agenda. And we want to be able to then recognize what are those symptoms that we're seeing and those behaviors that we might see in someone who's memory impaired. Can we help? Are there some spiritual distress going on with them? Oh no, it's just their dementia. There's lots of things we can still do for someone and understand, the differences between a symptom and a problem, but also to understand the dynamics that a family, that whole system of family, what does that bring to when we care for elders? And then we go into ethics. Certainly the ethics piece is so important, especially now in this day and age. Think of the assisted suicide and how that is trying to take hold. Well, they're going to die anyway, why bother? To understand the ethical issues that are grounded in our Catholic social teaching, our ethical religious directives, the guides that we need, to help us also to broaden our understanding of world religions. Because not only are we caring for those who are of our faith, of our Catholic faith, we're caring for those of other traditions, and we have so many people working with us of other traditions. So if we can show them that synergy as well. Then we have certainly understanding the difference, obviously, discovering right and wrong. And hopefully we know that there's still right and wrong in this day and age. And also to help them to see how to come to a decision. The last piece, that last module, is palliative care. What are the principles of palliative care? How do you address those very difficult conversations when somebody is dying? Sometimes the person that is going through the process is becoming extremely peaceful. But the people around them, their family, are going through such agony of their own agony of the garden. And some family members can accept and are walking that journey and accompany, as David said, we accompany people. And some are having a hard time. So how do we minister? How do we have that difficult conversation to say to someone, this is where this is going to probably may go. Let's talk about it. And some people will share their feelings, some don't. And understanding the terminology in the dying process. And most important, we truly, truly believe that not only are we caring for those in our long term, but how important it is for pastoral people to develop a community network. To have that spiritual care network where you can call one another, come together, and help one another. Either you're mentoring or you're guiding, so that you can help, because this is hard work. It's, you give a lot of compassion and it drains you. Where do you get renewed? So we talk about the importance of developing that network, and also to be available to ministering to elders in the parish, and as well as those who, any type of aging issue comes up in the realm of spiritual care. So just an overview, with the partners in pastoral care ministry, what I was so excited about is that when we came together, I realized anyway, that every specialized ministry was an absolute gem in the church. And who's running those ministries? The lay people, in so many ways. They come together and they're so dedicated. It helped me to understand that there are core topics that we can do as continue as pastoral care people. And we shared so many best practices together. And I'm extremely grateful because now I have my own network of spiritual care people. I have my own network of different resources. Coming together as church like this has been a wonderful opportunity for all of us. Our mother foundress, who was Mother Mary Angeline Teresa McCrory, she's now venerable. She once said, one must have a deep and abiding love for the elderly and a real desire to be of service to them. And I think that's so true. It is a vocation for each of you, whichever ministry. It is a call. It is your fiat. And I think, and I pray, that we continue to come together to do these things. I'm grateful for certainly the people in Houston, for Denise inviting us to work with them. This is what we need to do. There's many wonderful things happening in our church today. We need to continue to get that word out because we're answering a lot of needs of the people in our diocese through the wonderful ministries that we are doing and coming together. So that's my little brief story, and I want to thank you for this opportunity and this time. Thank you, David, for asking me to come. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Deacon Al Bosick, and I'm very, very excited to be able to share with all of you here today and all of those that are visiting with us on the internet about a bold pastoral care initiative that we've instituted here in the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston. We're very excited to share this. It goes back several years that we've been working on this project, and we just implemented it this year, and it's going wildly better than our expectations. I want to give you a 50,000-foot overview for just a second about what I'm going to talk about. The presentation is going to be in two parts. I'm going to give a description of pastoral care initiative that we developed. I'm going to talk about the history of where we got where we are, because that's pretty important to understand. Houston is just growing like crazy, and it's kind of thrust us into a situation that we had to be able to deal with this, hit the ground running. And so I want to show you what the history was, the problems that we encountered, and then we'll get to the solutions and how we implemented the solution. That's one part. The second part is going to be a Q&A. I know that when you hear what I have to say, and as we go through this, I'm sure you're going to have questions. Well, how does this work in my own diocese? Or maybe you have a suggestion. Well, why don't you try so-and-so? Maybe that would work better. We would love to hear that. And I am so blessed to have on the team with me Denise Foose. She's going to handle the question and answer part once I get all of the explanation out here. And Denise is a fabulous, loving, caring, board-certified chaplain, and she's had years of experience, and she has been instrumental in basically helping to design all of this and especially the educational part that you'll be hearing after Denise and I finish this part. So, with that, I wanted to say that what we're doing in this bold initiative is bringing colleagues into partnership together, priests, lay people. We're coming up with a solution that's going to deal with a couple of issues that we have. I'll show you the problems. And it has created new positions, both volunteer and paid positions for the laity, and it has a comprehensive educational approach that is unique. And so it's a 3 to 5 year initiative. This is not just something that we jumped into and said, well, let's keep our fingers crossed and hope this works, you know. It'll take us a while to lay the foundation and in order to complete the implementation, but I'll show you how far we've made it just since the beginning of this year. Where does this come from as far as the laity is concerned? Well, you know the sheep and the goats, right? You look at Matthew 25, verse 36, and I like sheep. I'm not really particularly care that much for goats, so I think I know where I want to go, and Jesus has given me some directions here. And I was sick, and you visited me, you know. So we move forward in an attempt to be faithful to that biblical mandate. And Jesus is in the patient that we go and see. And I tell people in my classes all the time, yes, we have the sanctuary of the church. That's a sacred place. We may have perpetual adoration chapel. That's a sacred place. But I've always maintained in my years in the chaplaincy that every one of those hospital rooms is a sacred place too, where we have an opportunity to encounter Jesus. And it goes back to Vatican II. I have to say that Vatican II was most instrumental in pointing out that, the laity should be involved more. And laity, by virtue of our baptism, we are involved. In fact, they had the decree on the apostolate of the laity that came out from Vatican II in 1965 that called upon not just the clergy but the laity to be involved. The U.S. Council of Catholic Bishops reaffirmed that in 1980. They came out with a paper called Called and Gifted, the American Catholic Laity. So the apostolate of the laity decree said, pity for the needy and the sick, and works of charity and mutual aid intended to relieve human needs of every kind are held in the highest honor by the church. And there is a directive for the laity to be engaged. So you'll see that in our bold initiative, the laity are going to provide a foundation. There's a linchpin upon which this whole design is going to work. St. Teresa of Avila said, and by the way, I read this and every time I teach a class, which we'll be talking about classes in a minute, I like to always read this quote from St. Teresa. She says, Christ has no body now on earth but yours, no hands but yours, no feet but yours. Yours are the eyes through which to look out Christ's compassion to the world. Yours are the feet with which he is to go about doing good. Yours are the hands with which he is to bless men now. Well, we're so blessed in other ways too. One in particular, the Archdiocese has given its unambiguous commitment to our new paradigm, our new initiative. And we were also joined in this. We're greatly appreciative of the Catholic Health Initiative, St. Luke's Health Hospital here in Houston. They gave us a very wonderful grant, which we're most appreciative, that helped us implement what you're about to hear. So let's talk about the first step. The first step was an assessment. I'm sorry, I should do clicker. There it is. Thank you. There we are. There's St. Luke's Health Initiative. Thank you. Okay, so the first step, where are we going? Well, we had to do an assessment of what the issues were in the Archdiocese and what was required, what are the needs. And by the way, I'm going to talk a lot about hospitals, but don't forget this initiative also includes nursing homes as well as the homebound. So hospitals, nursing homes, homebound, all of this is included. So we did an in-depth assessment, and of course, what I'd like to do is present the problem before I show you what the solution was. So let's start with the problems. The Archdiocesan profile. Just to put the problem into perspective, this was huge. This is our first big concern. There are 10 counties in the Galveston-Houston Archdiocese, 8,800 square miles. There are 1.77 million Catholics just in our Archdiocese. We have 435 priests, we have 146 parishes, and we have 411 permanent deacons. I think we're either second or third most number of permanent deacons in a diocese in the country. So as you can see, geographically and population-wise, as well as the number of parishes involved, we've got a pretty big job on our hands here. There was a second issue, and the second issue had to do with the hospitals. Hospital needs alone are so great. In Harris County, which includes Houston, there are 84 hospitals. Now, people don't just normally think of Harris County when they're thinking about Houston. They also think about some of the neighboring counties, and they have this, what they call Harris County Metropolitan Statistical Area, you know, fancy name for saying, yeah, all of that area of Houston, right? And if you add in all the hospitals from there, you're even talking a larger number. And so, by population, Houston is the fourth in the nation after New York, LA, and Chicago. And Houston is the largest geographically of any city in the United States with over 1 million population. And we have about 2.3 million just in the city limits of Houston. So, you can see the problem. We have lots of ground to cover, and we've got lots of folks, Christian sisters and brothers, Catholic sisters and brothers that we need to minister to. Well, I need to give you a little history to see what has happened. There's the old paradigm. You know the old paradigm, okay? Where you had a parish would have a hospital within its parish jurisdictions, and if someone got sick in the hospital, well, that pastor or his parochial vicar or assistant would go to that hospital. That was the way it was handled. Well, that didn't really work in Houston because all of the major hospitals, if you got sick, you went to the major hospitals, and they were all congregated in one place called the Texas Medical Center. Now, the Texas Medical Center has all the major hospitals, and I can say personally, I was in the hospital one time for several weeks, and it was fabulous. I had a priest that would come and see me every day and bring me communion. He would sit with me. He would listen. I mean, that's how I learned about pastoral care. It was a life experience for me. And he came every day. Now, how many years ago do you think that was? That was back in the 1970s. It just can't happen anymore. You know, they decided, okay, this parochial thing where the parish will handle the hospital, that's not going to work because all the major hospitals are there in the medical center, and we just can't do this. And so, as Father Ito had said, about 30 years ago, they designed, the bishop at the time approved the Catholic Chaplains Corps. It was fabulous. They had 20 priests assigned 100% to the Catholic Chaplains Corps. And what did they do? They went to all those hospitals and ministered to everybody in the Texas Medical Center. Well, that was 30 years ago. Now, the number of beds has doubled in the Texas Medical Center. We now have 10,000 beds just in the Texas Medical Center. And guess how many priests we have? 7. 7 priests. So you see, that's a huge problem that we had to deal with. And of course, the laity would be fundamental in helping us deal with that. So that's just the medical center. I don't want to stop in this discussion and have you think that we just implemented this new design in the medical center. Houston is growing so much that now the major hospitals have sprung up in 8 different regions around the city of Houston and in the Archdiocese. In other words, I'll give you an example. We have a place north of Houston called the Woodlands. All the major hospitals have now opened up there too, in addition to the medical center. They have 1,000 beds just in the Woodlands. Okay? And those the poor parishes up there, they're trying to deal with it, but they're overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed. So our new design, as you will see, has also been fine-tuned in order to accommodate what we call regional hospital areas. Like I say, there's at least 7 of those in the Houston area now too. So I hope I've given you an idea of some of the need, the problems that we had. The next thing I point out is the pastoral need. You say, well, you know, maybe there aren't that many Catholics in a hospital of 1,000 or 10,000 beds. Well, that's not what we've seen. Statistically, here in the Archdiocese, we've seen anywhere from 18 to 25% of the hospital patients are Catholics. And so it's just huge. And you know what? When you are isolated from your parish, and you're out of it, and you're isolated, if you would, in a hospital room, your isolation is enhanced, if you would. It's augmented. It makes you feel even more isolated to be away from your parish community. The other study, we have studies that show that. It's